If you're in a leadership position, you know that pressure is not an exception anymore. It's actually the default setting. There are deadlines here that just keep getting tighter by the day. Expectations keep rising. Decisions are waiting for you. And the longer you wait, the more they pile on your plate. And yes, mistakes literally feel less forgivable. And what makes it even harder in this day and age is that pressure doesn't come from one place anymore. There's constant change. AI is reshaping roles overnight. Your teams are emotionally exhausted, some obviously disengaged, and you as the leader are expected to be strong. You have to decide on the go. You have to be calm, collected, human all at once. If you've lately found yourself thinking, this is getting to me, I feel overwhelmed, much as I'm this competent, everything just feels urgent and I don't like this feeling, this video is for you. I'm going to share with you 7 ways to deal with high pressure situations at work effortlessly. This is especially for team leaders who feel that need to regulate pressure before it starts regulating you. Hi, welcome back to my channel. And if we are crossing paths for the very first time, my name is Nancy. I got into leadership early in my career while serving in the aviation industry. And this is one experience that literally shaped my entire professional trajectory, and in a very positive way, I must say. And I've since settled into entrepreneurship. Right now, I eat, I sleep, I preach leadership, professional growth, career advancement, and also help other women transition into leadership positions with ease, all the while protecting your mental and emotional wellness. I've equally authored leadership books, and my most recent release being Undeniable Productivity for 365 Days for all professionals who want to start the year strong and end the year whole. So if you're in or you aspire to take up a leadership position soon, I strongly believe that my kind of content will resonate with you. Kindly consider subscribing, press that notifications button on your screen and you'll receive timely updates whenever I release a new video. And thank you so much for joining and growing with this community. Leadership pressure doesn't have to be so loud or dramatic for the alarm to go off. If it steals your sleep, if it compromises your decision-making abilities, both in and out of office, if it interferes with your personality such that you cannot relate well with other people, the alarm already went off. And chances are high that you're responding normally to an abnormal level of demand. So the goal here is not to eliminate pressure altogether. It just doesn't have to live inside your mind and body. So if you're ready for the antidotes, if you're ready for the way out, we are going to start with number 7. Stop treating pressure as an emergency. We live in a culture of manufactured urgency where everything is ASAP. That report is only good if it's handed in as soon as yesterday. Every email just looks too critical to be overlooked. Every decision that you make feels irreversible, like it's tied to your losing or keeping your role, keeping your job in that organization. High pressure situations have a way of feeling like emergencies, but most of them are not, And the problem here is that your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a real emergency and a perceived emergency. To your body, a fire in the building, and an overwhelming email from your boss, from your manager can actually trigger the same exact fight or flight response. They're both going to increase your heart rate. They're both going to mess up your breathing. They're even going to narrow your thinking. Your nervous system's main job is to keep you safe. So when something at work feels so threatening, your body is going to react as if everything is about to go down. Everything is about to go very, very wrong. So you're going to start feeling like, oh my goodness, my reputation is at risk. All eyes are judging me. I risk losing, I risk letting people down and actually losing credibility. Pressure feels so intense, even when logically, that you've handled worse. That it's not life-threatening, you know that you're actually competent. Your mind knows all that, but your body doesn't. So when you find yourself in this situation, the most immediate thing to do is to settle your nervous system. Your body thinks that you're in danger, so yours is to show it that you're actually safe. So ask yourself, this question: if I do nothing for the next 24 hours, what actually breaks? And you'll notice that most of the time, nothing collapses, nothing explodes, nothing ends your career. If anything, you're going to gain more clarity, and the situation is going to feel more manageable the next day. And the effortless shift here is to label the situation like, is this urgent or is it important? Much as it is uncomfortable, normalize resisting the urge, to push through pressure, especially unnecessary pressure, to glorify numbing yourself, and instead practice reassuring your nervous system so that pressure doesn't take over your entire system. Way number 6, you want to separate responsibility from over ownership. If you're guilty of always doing more than what is expected of your role, for all the wrong reasons at the expense of your mental and emotional well-being, this one is specifically for you. Time has taught me that strong leaders don't carry more. They just carry, but more clearly. Leaders mostly don't crack under pressure you don't crack under pressure for lack of skills. You crack because you carry too much that is not yours to carry. Talk of lifting team morale at all costs, or making other people stress your own crossword puzzle, or even navigating unclear systems and unrealistic expectations without voicing your concerns. The present normal workplace is to blame mostly for these kinds of pressure, because the roles are blurred. You cannot tell where your output begins and where you should safely log off, And there's also the case of under-resourced teams becoming the norm. Like, the workload is way bigger than the workers, which of course can spiral into emotional spillover, because people need an outlet for their frustrations. Not everybody can just wish it away. And you may be responsible, yes, but you don't have to absorb everything. Over responsibility is not leadership, it's survival. So carrying more is going to give you that illusion that you're getting stronger, like, I'm taking on more responsibility, I can handle more emotional weight, I can be counted on to do more invisible work. And to the ears, this sounds like dedication, this sounds like commitment, reliability, but the black and white of it is that you're responding in survival mode, and you may have been conditioned very early on in your role to anticipate problems before they happen, to fix issues so that your team looks good, to stay on even when you're exhausted, and you may even be rewarded now for this, but there's a cost behind the scenes. When you overown everything, what happens is pressure will never leave your body. Your mind will never be fully at rest, and your role is going to start feeling so heavy instead of grounded. Survival is going to ask you to hold everything together. Leadership is going to challenge you to decide what truly needs your attention. Over responsibility comes from fear, that fear of disappointing or even being replaced, or even being seen as not enough. And you're going to notice that pressure drops when you release that emotional over ownership. And this means that you start happening to situations instead of situations happening to you. Way number 5, measure yourself by alignment, not outcome. Pressure skyrockets when your self-evaluation depends entirely on results. That moment when you use results as the main and only measure of your worth. So every outcome, however small, just carries emotional weight. And when you succeed, you're going to experience temporary relief, but failure feels so personal to a point that it can even cripple your days. Uncertainty becomes unbearable because it threatens your sense of identity, not just your performance. And this can be especially intense for those in leadership roles today, because outcomes are often influenced by factors that you cannot fully control. Things like fluctuations and market shifts, the size of your teams, office politics, timing, or even organization systems that are imperfect by design. So when you judge yourself solely by results, you're going to internalize all of that. Effortless leadership begins when you separate who you are from what happened, when you evaluate yourself by the quality of your decisions, by your integrity under pressure, and alignment between your actions and your values. Results are going to stop having that sort of absolute power over you. Yes, they still matter, but not to a point of defining you. So to make the effortless shift, try this immediately after your next high stakes or high pressure meeting. Instead of thinking, did this work? Did everyone approve? Did I get the result that I wanted? ask yourself a different question. Was my decision informed by my values, my judgment, and the information that I had at the time? Did I stay true to myself? Did I act with integrity? Can I confidently stand behind my actions and decisions, imperfect or not? And this is you making alignment your internal reference point. And when that happens, you notice that success is no longer dependent on external validation or unpredictable results. You're going to start evaluating yourself based on how you show up. The idea here is to stabilize your sense of self under pressure such that you come across as that leader who's clear-minded, who's quite credible, even when things don't go exactly as planned. Alignment doesn't remove pressure. It just makes it bearable or navigable, if that's a word, and far less personal. And now we can see that outcomes fluctuate. So make alignment your life jacket. Way number 4, slow down your response and not your standards. Speed under pressure is not synonymous with competence. Just think of your bosses, think of your leaders in general who you trust and admire the most. And you're going to notice that they don't rush. They pause, they breathe, they say things like, let me reflect on this. I want to come back to you with a well thought out answer. The situation at hand may actually be calling on them to answer on the go, to answer on the spot, to execute on the clock. But this is where calm deliberation becomes their secret sauce. You slow down the moment without losing authority. Calm deliberation just signals self-trust on your part. You've internalized emotional regulation, and now you have that confidence to not be rushed by external pressure. And here you're subconsciously telling people that I'm not overwhelmed by this situation. I don't need urgency to feel important. I'm actually choosing my response. And in a culture that is driven by immediacy, that ability to pause, that ability to reflect, to respond intentionally is actually a form of leadership strength. Calm deliberation is your way of protecting decision quality in environments that constantly demand more and faster. So tell yourself, that pause is not a weakness, it's actually presence. And here you're deliberately choosing awareness, not reaction. You're choosing intention over urgency. And when you pause, you're actually grounding yourself in the room, in your body, and even in the decision in front of you. And people can feel it. Your voice is going to become steady. Your words are going to carry more weight, and your leadership is going to feel more palpable. And today, speed is no longer impressive. It's actually expected. So make slowing down your deliberate edge. Way number 3, normalize uncertainty instead of trying to eliminate it altogether. A huge amount of pressure today comes from people trying to appear certain during very uncertain times, with very uncertain systems. Modern workplaces, I'm thinking beyond 2020, are built on uncertainty. Priorities shift quickly, depending on what carries more weight now. Strategies evolve midstream. 1 minute office presence holds your future. The next, it's remote work that actually keeps the systems running. Roles keep changing, as we've just seen, especially if AI is doing most of the heavy lifting in your workplace. And sometimes decisions are actually made with incomplete information. And through it all, you as the leader are expected to project confidence. You have to be very decisive. You have to act like the ground beneath you is stable. This means that instead of saying, I don't know yet, you actually feel that pressure to sound sure. You want to sound convincing. Instead of acknowledging complexity, you feel compelled to simplify. Instead of pausing to explore options, you're actually busy rushing to close the loop. That performance can actually be exhausting. Modern leadership is about navigating ambiguity. You don't have to perform certainty, or even pretend that uncertainty doesn't exist. Sometimes, to lift the pressure off of your shoulders, it's okay to ask yourself, it's okay to give yourself that permission to name what's unclear. Say something like, this is evolving, or we're deciding, but with very limited information. You're allowing yourself some grace to be human and to not know it all. And here you're actually being very loud about it. And you're going to notice that the pressure to be flawless is going to ease, and your decision-making abilities will become more grounded and actually relatable. And with the constant change in technology, let's just accept that uncertainty is actually unavoidable. Real leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about being steady, being transparent, and thoughtful while the answers are still Imagine, and this is the kind of honesty that is going to reduce pressure both for you and for those people who are around you. Then you're going to find that instead of asking, why don't I know this yet? How am I not aware of this? Your mental framework will be leaning towards questions like, what's the best decision with the information that I have right now? And the plan with this mindset is to remove impossible expectations and restore that calm authority. And this brings us to way number 2, decide what good enough looks like before you start. One of the biggest sources of pressure for people in leadership today is undefined excellence. Expectations are implied rather than stated. Success is measured after the fact, and the standards keep shifting depending on the context or even the people. For example, you're asked to prepare a short update for senior leadership, but with no extra details. So it's like, should you be strategic? Should it be operational? Is it for information? Is it for decision making? No one specifies. So you're left with guesswork as you anticipate questions. And afterwards, the feedback that comes is, this is good, but we were really looking for something that is more high level, which means that the expectation was actually there. It was just never stated. Or you lead a project that launches on time and within scope, and in your heart of hearts, you actually think everything went well. But later you hear comments like, it would have been a bit stronger if we'd involved X earlier. Or in hindsight, the messaging could have been a bit bolder. None of this was defined upfront as a success criterion. So the goalposts just appear after the results have been delivered, which leaves you in that almost there trap because you never knew what you were aiming for in the first place. Still, you may actually find that in one meeting, you are the person who's the most praised for being decisive and moving fast. In another, with a different stakeholder present, you're actually told, Nancy, we needed you to slow down, or we need you to slow down and be more consultative. Same behavior, same audience, different judgment. And the standard didn't change because your leadership did. It just changed because the context and the politics did. So you feel that need to keep adjusting yourself to stay acceptable. Undefined excellence turns ambition into pressure, and it keeps leaders in that constant state of self-monitoring, like, did I do enough? Should I have done more? Will I be judged as sufficient? You're actually forced to constantly guess, and guessing under visibility can actually be mentally exhausting. And in such an environment, you're never quite sure when enough is enough. So you overthink, you over-prepare, you keep refining long past the point of impact. Effortless leadership begins when you define excellence for yourself before others define it for you. That moment when you decide what good enough, what high quality and done actually mean in a given situation, because everything is finally clear. Clarity protects you from burnout over undefined and unmet standards. And the call here is on you to define your own expectations explicitly and to even stay true to them. Way number 1, anchor your body before your mind. If you have gone through any form of leadership training, the one module that you can never sidestep is how to think your way out of pressure. You're actually taught that, sometimes even subconsciously, that pressure is a promise, and the best leaders feel it, manage it, but never show it. But pressure is not a thinking problem. It's really not a thinking problem. It's more of a physiological one. You don't necessarily manage it by thinking better or rationalizing or reframing or even telling yourself, that I need to calm down. When pressure hits, your body reacts before your thoughts do. And your nervous system is going to sense risk in that, that uncalled for judgment, or the extra responsibility on your shoulders, or the uncertainty that is hanging in the air. And these are the moments where your muscles are going to tighten. These are the moments where your shoulders are going to start moving closer to your ears, where your heart rate just goes on overdrive, as we discussed earlier. And once your body is in that state, your thinking is going to automatically be compromised. No mindset technique actually works if your body is in threat mode, because at that point, all your nervous system is thinking about and prioritizing is survival, not reflection. It doesn't have room for the good old, positive thinking. It doesn't have room for logic, for self-talk. All this, they simply can't land, because your body is bracing for trouble ahead. So you find that pressure makes even the most capable of leaders doubt themselves, rush decisions, or feel mentally blocked. real pressure management starts in the body. So the moment you address the physiology, slowing down your breath, for example, grounding your body, releasing that tension, your mind will naturally follow. Clarity will naturally return because your system no longer feels under threat. So for your effortless reset, you need only 30 seconds. And I talk about this a lot in most of my videos because it already has a proven track record and it works really, really fast. Just inhale through your nose to the count of 4, then exhale through your mouth to the count of 6. Drop your shoulders down to the, to the 90 degrees angle from your ears, just this point, and unclench your jaw. And when you do this before you speak up, before you respond, or even before making any decision, you slowly notice that you start responding, but from a place of authority. I hope this video resonated with you, and if it did, please let me know in the comments section what stood out to you the most. And also kindly consider subscribing and pressing that notifications button on your screen if you haven't joined this family just yet. And also, please feel free to share it with a friend or two who may benefit from this kind of content. And then take a moment to have a look at this video right here on how to turn anxiety into your secret leadership asset. It's going to shed some light on some of the aspects that we have discussed in this video. Thank you so much for your company, and see you on the next one. Bye.